Hello, I'm Dan Lutz, and I'm just getting this started for Nathan. Nathan Victor, where are you? 1 second here. All right, I'm bring you on. Well, Glenda is also there. Hello, Glenda.
Hey, Superman Dan.
Hey, Nathan.
Hello, Billion Coin community and the world. Hey, thank you, Dan, for setting this up for me again. You've been such a blessing. I can't thank God enough for you. So, anyways, here we go. Another night, Sunday night here in America, in Arkansas. We're addressing the Billion Coin community, and I want to address a few things on the value of the coin versus the US dollar. Because I get a lot of people.
Nathan?
Yes.
Before you get started,
sure.
I'm going to have to step out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you the host, right?
Excellent.
And then you'll have the controls on your system.
Okay.
We'll go from there. So just give me a moment. And then let's see. Make host. There we go.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Dan.
All right. So you should be able to do everything now. I'm going to step out, and good seeing you all. Bye-bye.
All right. God bless you, Dan. See you soon. Okay. So what I want to share with everybody tonight, because I get it a lot. Matter of fact, who doesn't get it? Who's in the Billion Coin community? How do I cash out? And is it even worth anything? I get these questions all the time, and I want to address these things. And I also want to address our migration, which we are migrating to a far more advanced wallet. Lots of great things that's going on with the Billion Coin community. For some of us that's been around for a long time, that's been through this, been dragged through I can't say dragged through the mud, but, you know, really had to been patient, like growing pains, if I could put it that way. With every great thing, you're going to have growing pains. And this is great, I got to say. We have passed Bitcoin as far as our first 2 years versus Bitcoin's first 2 years, and Bitcoin is the granddaddy of cryptocurrency. Now, what I want to do is a little bit of comparison here, and I even want to play a video that exposes the US dollar and then compare the Billion Coin to the US dollar and why it shines above it. So anyways, I really did a lot of research ever since I got into the Billion Coin community. This has been a real eye-opening experience. When I got in, I was blessed with a gift, like many here are, but I noticed my value going up daily, and I started getting really excited about that. I was like, wow. So I really started doing a lot of research on cryptocurrency, on Bitcoin, on the Billion Coin, reading the blogs, watching videos like Bitcoin Randy, Dan, my very good friend Frederick. And Frederick's been in cryptocurrency since it started, and he's on fire for this, and he's one of my best friends. So anyways, make a long story short, I want to make some nice comparisons between the Billion Coin versus the US dollar, or this paper money. One thing I do want to, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Just to show everyone the agreement. Here is the Billion Coin agreement. All members of the Billion Coin community agree that this coin will never go down in value. It can only go up in price. This agreement is hinged on a software program that drives the price of TBC up by 1 to 5% daily until it reaches its ultimate price. With those, I like what admin says here, and I really want to hit on this. with those few words of the agreement, it carries a lot of meaning. Almost when you do any business transaction, or I mean, there's an agreement involved. As a matter of fact, here's what God says about agreement. It's considered the most reliable history book in the world. And this is what God says about agreement. Let me go ahead and show everybody what he says in Genesis. Now, of course, these people, and this is actually the same thing that's going on today. It's this current monetary system is really just it's history repeating itself in many ways. Okay, so this is, and the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Now, this is the power of agreement. Now, they were actually doing a new world order or a one world thing, and they wanted to make a name for themselves as basically we're God and forget you up there. Now, this took divine intervention. Other than that, the power of agreement works for good people and also works for evil people. Anyways, coming into agreement in the billion coin, it's amazing because when we agree and it's backed by people. Now, the US dollar is not backed by people, it's backed by debt. So what I want to do is actually play a video for everybody that's going to explain the central banking system. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that right now. Here, hold on one second. Okay, this is called Who Controls the Money Controls the World. Now, one thing I do want to mention here real quick before I start it is, true wealth is really your time and your freedom. And also true wealth is stored up in people. With great people, with good skills, with good trades, with good qualities, can do so much more than just paper money in itself. It really can't do anything, by itself. It's people always. And that's what the billion coin is all about. It puts extremely high value on people. Now, before I go into this video here, let me just say this. President Obama put a high value on people releasing hostages from Iran. So I'm going to actually, if I still have this here, the U.S. sent another 1.3 billion to Iran after hostages were released. Now, when it comes to this paper crap right here, people kill for it, and in the Bible, it specifically says the love of money is the root to all kinds of evil. That's what it literally says. It's not money itself. It's neither good or evil. It's what you do with it. So anyways, think about this. You're looking at maybe a couple pallets of paper, versus a human life. A human life is priceless. In God's eyes, we are the top of the creation here on earth. We are the smartest. We're made in his image. And so we are the most valuable asset here on earth. And our asset in the billion coin is people. There's no other cryptocurrency that does this. Another great thing about ours is it's a private agreement. So it's not on the coin market cap. A lot of people say, oh, I don't see it on the coin market cap. It's because we don't want it to be there. It's up to us to trade. If it were to be surrendered to this market, the price would fluctuate, and we don't want that. I've seen Bitcoin. I know Bitcoin is manipulated because that's another story. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and go into this video here real quick.
Under this fractional reserve scheme, we inevitably become debt slaves to a ruling class of financial elite, not because they are better or smarter than anyone else, but because they have rigged the system to benefit themselves at the expense of most people on the planet. Catherine Austin Fitts is an expert on this issue. She was an assistant secretary of Housing and Urban Development under President George Bush Sr., and then an advisor to the Clinton administration.
Let's set up a game of Monopoly and you want to buy Park Place. What I can continually do is just print money, give myself more money, lower the value of your money by printing more. No matter how hardworking you are or how successful you are, I can always end up buying you for free.
So how come if you or I make up money, it's called counterfeiting? But if the banks do it, it's increasing the money supply. How did the banks get this power? This is Jekyll Island, where in 1910, representatives from the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Morgans, and other private bankers gathered secretly to draft the legislation that would create the Federal Reserve. Ed Griffin literally wrote the book on what happened at Jekyll Island.
Central banks are banking cartels which have gone into partnership with the respective governments in the countries where they operate. And they've been given monopolistic power over the creation of the nation's money supply. That's what the politicians handed to them as a gift, you might say, for the partnership. Now, in return, what did the bankers do for the politicians? They promised to create money out of nothing, now that they've got this legal power to do it anytime the government needs it.
And since 2008, we've witnessed the greatest fake money printing run in recorded history. This financial sleight of hand disguises the costs, hides who's to blame, and leaves us as debt slaves working to pay off the bill. I found it revealing that in the same year the Federal Reserve was founded, 1913, the Internal Revenue Service was also established. An income tax was then instigated so you and I would have to pay the politicians' debt plus interest to the bankers.
The problem is we have a privately owned central bank system in the United States disguised as a government-owned system. Now, if you look in the telephone book here in the Washington, D.C. area, you look up for Federal Reserve in the blue government pages, it's not there. It's in the white pages right next to Federal Express. It's a privately owned central bank.
What is the proper relationship? What should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. There is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.
We have a private bank that prints money on behalf of the Treasury. The Federal Reserve prints money on a debt-based system, which creates scarcity. But it puts a group of insiders in a position of having access to all the data about the economy when we don't. So you have a small group of bankers who understand the data on how the money works in the economy, and it gives them the ability to print money in a way that the insiders are protected and everybody else is drained.
Catherine went on to compare a healthy economy to a vibrant torus, balanced, freely flowing, and energized throughout, in contrast to what's happening in our current economy.
What you have is a system that's very dynamic, and it's trying to optimize. But intertwined in the core of it, you have a tapeworm. The way a tapeworm works in your body is it injects a chemical into your body that makes you crave what's good for the tapeworm and bad for you. You have a parasite that's very much manipulating and engorging itself at the expense of the whole.
We live in a tapeworm economy where the financial elite are the tapeworm and they're feeding on us. And they don't like it when people blow their cover. After Catherine began exposing government corruption at the highest levels, the FBI raided her company and seized its assets. She was dragged through the courts for 10 years before being found innocent. So we've got the Federal Reserve, a privately owned corporation with a monopoly on creating money, but with no accountability, backed up by a government with a monopoly on force. The country got sold on the Fed as an institution that would help stabilize the economy and remain independent of politics. But in fact, in close to a century of existence, the Federal Reserve has done just the opposite. Since they took charge, we've been robbed through inflation, and the purchasing power of the dollar has declined more than 96%. And the wealth gap makes it clear most of the money is going to a very few. Only 16 years after the Federal Reserve was in power, America experienced the Great Depression. My research revealed that before the big crash in 1929, the elite bankers pulled their money out of the stock market. After the crash, they used that money to buy up cheap stocks and smaller failing banks for pennies on the dollar. Among the bankers who consolidated their wealth this way were the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and Morgan.
Now, I got to pause this just for a second. And this is how they cash out when you actually think about it. They have to cash out too. When they manipulate, like this stock market crash that they just talked about, and they manipulate it and they dump all their stocks, right? And they go way down. And then people lose left and right. Next thing you know, they're literally transferring this paper stuff into houses, jets, buildings, businesses, cars, you name it. So, it's manipulated. It's awful. So anyways, let me continue. That's how they cash out.
A similar scenario played out in the 2008 financial collapse, with the same bankers benefiting. In the years leading up to the collapse, the biggest banks, including Bank of America, Citigroup, and Chase, controlled by the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and Morgans, were bundling and trading bad loans that they knew would eventually fail. It's like putting rotten oranges in a box and selling them as grade AAA. The bundlers of the debt knew it was only a matter of time before someone would open that box and see that the content was worthless, since they were the ones who packed the boxes in the first place. When the rotten oranges, what we hear about as unsound loans, derivatives, and credit default swaps, were finally discovered, everyone was impacted. People lost their homes, their jobs, their businesses, and their retirements. Meanwhile, the biggest banks who created the problem in the first place were the ones who got bailed out. Why's that? Why would the Federal Reserve give trillions to the banks, even though the majority of Americans were against bailing them out? And why not help those most in need rather than the perpetrators of the financial collapse? My research led me to believe that the same people who created the Federal Reserve, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and the Morgans, still control it, and they use this scheme to bail themselves out at our expense.
Many of the banks created are still the most powerful lobby on Capitol Hill, and they, frankly, own the place.
I'm convinced that the near collapse of the economy in 2008 resulted from an orchestrated pump and dump scheme designed and executed by the big bankers to consolidate wealth and power. David Icke explains how he sees the Federal Reserve rigging the so-called business cycles.
Stage one, it's like throwing a fishing line out. Stage one, you put lots of money, units of exchange, into circulation. You do this by pushing interest rates down, by making lots of loans. This is the part of the cycle we call a boom. Because there's lots of units of exchange in circulation, there's lots of money changing hands. That generates lots of economic activity. That generates jobs. And as more and more money is spent, there's more demand. So companies take out more loans of fresh air money to increase their production. People get confident in their everyday lives. Hey, you know, I work for this company. They've got lots of orders. It's really going great. My job's safe. I tell you what, we can have a bigger house. Then they start to change it. What they do is they pull the fishing line in. They push interest rates up. Now, fewer people, are taking out loans, and they make the criteria for having a loan from the bank stronger anyway. And also, now, as interest rates have gone up, a larger part of people's income is going to pay back the extra interest and not being circulated in buying things. Suddenly, there's nothing like as much money in circulation, and therefore, fewer things are being bought. Companies start to go down in terms of their profits. They start to shed jobs, and they start to go out of business. People lose their jobs. They can't pay the mortgage anymore of the big house they took out in the good times. Now what the banks are doing is starting to reel the fishing line in, because as they go bankrupt, companies and individuals, the banks get the real wealth, the property, the land, the resources that they had signed to them for lending nearly figures on a screen. Now this economic cycle of fishing line out, fishing line back, lots of units in circulation, pull them in, has been going on for centuries. And what it's done, it's stolen and accumulated the real wealth of the world in the hands of the few.
At the international level, central bankers use the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund to make more money while exploiting the resources of countries they lend to, bankrupting them in the process. The central bank of central banks is the Rothschild-created Bank for International Settlements. The elite are positioning themselves to control access to virtually everything we need to survive.
No matter where you go in the world, the money is controlled by the banking system. They decide if people eat or if they don't eat. Who's a billionaire and who lives on less than $1 a day? He who controls the money controls the world, and a very few control the money.
At this point, my view of the world had been turned upside down. I was struggling with the realization that the failure and suffering of so many is actually success and fulfillment for a few. The elite central bankers who fooled the world into letting them create money. They already have vast fortunes, so what is their end game? What is their ultimate agenda?
All right, so there we have it. I'm going to make sure that this doesn't keep automatically playing. Hopefully it doesn't. Okay, so anyways, in here, we're learning that the US dollar is basically, it's a system of enslavement that really mostly benefits just the elite. And I'd encourage everybody to do your research on this. I mean, this is serious stuff. The US dollar's lost 97% of its value since it was since the central banks took over our money system in 1913. It used to be backed by gold, no longer backed by gold. So anyways, make a long story short, I want to compare the present monetary system that's basically worldwide to the billion coin. the billion coin is also a money that's digital, that's backed by people in agreement. Look at Bitcoin. People are paying out the yin yang for Bitcoin. If you bought $100 worth of Bitcoin when it first came out, you would have close to, I think, somewhere around $80 million today. That's incredible, and people are going crazy over it. And Bitcoin is starting to make an upward comeback again after it was, I believe, it was totally manipulated and puffed up and then dumped, just like he was mentioning. When these groups of people do this to people devaluing things in order to amass it for themselves, and that's what this is. What another great thing about the billion coin is this is about helping and giving and adding value to people's lives and having an alternative, way to do business back and forth with one another. I can send billion coin on the other side of the planet in minutes, and the transactions have been going really fast for me lately. So anyways, now when we get this new wallet, I'm so excited, not just for myself, but really for the whole community, because I want everybody who's going to come into agreement and it's going to value the coin, it's going to use it. I want them to have a send button. So here's what you do. You go into, there's two ways. You could just pay a once lifetime fee of $10. That's just for the wallet itself. That's fine and dandy. You can do that. Or you can get the Kringle Cashback Office, which is also $10, and it includes the wallet fee. But the thing I love about the Kringle Cash system is it enables you to give away wallets already funded with something for people to get a good start with, and they can watch their billion coin grow. And there's so many ways. I'm not going to get into this today on how to actually increase your billion coin. Now, can it be used to purchase things? Absolutely. I have. I paid rent. I did a video on that not too long ago. Well, actually 9 months ago already. I have a nice list of transactions in order for people to get bonuses. So I have proof that, yeah, you can make money. You just have to value it. You have to learn about it. And in saying these things, I'm going to just check and see my YouTube channel here real quick if there's anybody with any questions or comments. It may not have set up like that, so let me try something else here. Okay, we have 2 participants here. All right, which one's me? Okay. We got Mama Glinda. I've been working with Mama Glinda for a long time. She's one of my top leaders. She's built a huge team in the billion coin, massive. We've worked really good together, and she used me as a trusted seller. I think that may be going to be a thing of the past pretty soon. But basically, to be a trusted seller, like say if you don't have a send button on right now, but you know somebody that wants to buy billion coin, you'd come to somebody like myself or even Glinda. I'm sure she might even have a send button on now, whoever you like. And the deal is we split the profit 50-50. So it's a great system. I did it too when I didn't have a send button, and I didn't mind. I didn't mind sharing a profit. This is about sharing. It's about giving, and it's about building our community. Because think about this: when we hit Bitcoin's membership numbers, or I've heard estimates. Last estimate I heard was around 14 million people own Bitcoin. I hear all different kinds of figures. So okay, let's just say 14 million. Let's just say if we actually match that. Think again now. You'll be glad that you got the billion coin in its earlier days. So in saying that, Glinda, if you want to say anything, you can raise your hand. If not, I'm I'm just going to say good night to everybody. God bless. And I'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow night, Lord willing.